South Carolina has signed a tailback, and he is a good one. Rahsul Faison has entered the chat for South Carolina. He will be eligible to play for the Gamecocks this year. Yeah, look, man, this is they just continue to kind of plug and play each season from the portal when it comes to the this position specifically, obviously the running back position. I like him, guys. Am I a running backs coach? Did they call me? No. But you know what a good one looks like. I know he had almost 2,000 yards in a couple of years out there at Utah State. But I think this is a big get for Carolina, and the spring is going to be a lot of fun with a lot of great talent. Oscar Adaway, I think, is still going to be recognized as the leader of the pack, and that's fair. But I think that it's going to be an outstanding competition leading into August the 31st.
Yeah, I watched some of his highlights, especially when he kind of came on the radar. Highlights can only tell you so much. I can't sit here and say I've watched Utah State games and watched him get -3 yards and blown up by a defensive end or a linebacker. But and what I did see, shifty, elusive, can put his foot in the ground and cut. I don't know how much long speed he has. He had a long of 60 yards last year, a long of 37 this year, rushing. But one of the things I did like is, he had defenders dragging him a couple of times in the highlights, and he dove into the end zone and kind of carried a body with him. So he's willing to lay it all out there to not get stopped at the one. I think that, come into this running back room, this is going to be a committee. I don't think you're going to see a situation where you have one guy getting 20 carries a game. I don't think that's the way they intend to do it. You got to have bodies in the SEC. You got to keep people fresh. And this running back room reminds me of an LSU running back room from a couple of years ago, where they might have 2-3 guys that can all go out there and get the job done. Now, which 2, 3, 4 of these guys are they going to do? How many reps? How's it going to get split up? All of that, we don't know yet. We'll hear more stuff in the spring. We'll see how these guys are performing. Jawarn Howell, the coaches love. They love Matthew Fuller. They obviously love this transfer they brought in, and they love Oscar Adaway. So I put on Twitter today, I think that, this running back room is as good as I've seen it at Carolina in a long time. And to have 4 guys that you feel like you can put the ball in their chest and let them go, competition breeds excellence.
Yeah, I mean, and at a position that has a statistically higher turnover and injury rate than others, you can't have too many quality running backs. I mean, we're 2 seasons removed for only having essentially one running back who wasn't an every down back. It's he's Juju McDowell, who's an incredible athlete, but not your prototypical first through third, first, second down running back. So any different athletes that you can get back there, especially one who looks like he seems to be a pretty patient runner, looks for holes, drags guys across the field, that's exactly what you need, because you are going to have to fill a gap. And I think one of the things that was on display, if we go back to the Citrus Bowl, was the fact that Lenoris Sellers is a more effective runner when there is also another effective runner in the backfield with him. And you saw that. I mean, Adaway got some run and had a good game. Sellers, of course, had that. But when you have a serious threat to, put up 100 yards a game plus, given the opportunity, obviously, then it makes Sellers better as well.
Interesting tidbit. Obviously, Rahsul Jackson comes from Utah State, the director of athletic performance out there, basically in charge of their Luke Day is Paul Jackson, who was in that same role at South Carolina and Coach Muschamp's last year in 2020. Obviously, these two know each other quite well, so I'd be interested to hear what Paul Jackson had to say to Rahsul Faison. I'm sure maybe didn't. I don't know. Maybe, but I would think that if he picked his brain, he'd probably give him a little bit of an insight of what it's like being in Columbia. Now, this is not the same staff that Paul Jackson worked for, because he worked for Coach Muschamp, of course. But a little interesting little tie-in there. Still a South Carolina tie-in. And where is Utah State? Is that Ogden? Ogden, Utah.
I believe it is Ogden, Utah.
Ogden. I think it's
I'm
Ogden.
not the geography guy.
I think it's Ogden, Utah. Jackson, he's got an interesting. Logan, Utah.
Logan.
He's got an interesting because he started at LSU. I just pulled up his profile. He went to Miami of Ohio for a year in 2010, but then he was at Southern Miss. He was at Ole Miss forever, and then he was in Columbia, and now he's in Utah. A little chilly out there compared to all those other spots.
Not today.
Well, that's true. That's a good point. So it brings up, kind of where they are. I do, I was told this morning, and all this stuff changes. I mean, you get told one thing right now, 50% of the time. It used to be like 99% of the time it was true. Now it's about 50. I do think they're going to be okay with the Cisse kid from NC State. I think Hale.
Hale reported today on the Big Spur that he went to Ole Miss and
got some pressure out there.
Tried to lock it down.
Yeah, but they couldn't.
But he's coming here.
Anticipated they would. But now Carolina's 16th in the portal rankings. Again, I don't get all hopped up on that anymore. I think all these rankings, I mean, they're 16th, they're 11th by the average rating per player. They're 11th. That's fine. Great, whatever. But I mean, if you actually look at all this stuff now, because each year your wants and needs are going to be different. Fair enough to say, correct? Like you're going to have guys who leave in the portal. Obviously, you got the draft. Obviously, you have graduates. But, the portal changes everything. So because rankings are calculated not just based on average rating per player, but the mass number of players that you sign when you're signing a high school class and when you're signing a portal class, they're going to look at Clemson. Like they signed like 14 kids in their high school class this year. So what are they ranked 30th or something? They signed some good players, so I don't know that the rankings are really what they used to be. I don't know if they will tweak them or need to tweak them or having to discuss. I don't know for those that care about that stuff, but I think it's more shifted now. Like Clint, for instance, in our chat box, he's a big recruiting guy, right? It's really more now, like less about the number that's next to your name and just going down the list and looking at the players that you're signing and then looking at the roster that you have and are you filling the gaps or not? Because you could be ranked 30th because you only signed, 9 players out of the portal, but those were the 9 players that you need. You know what I mean? So
scheme fit as well. It's not just, okay, we lost 3 linebackers. Let's bring in 3 linebackers that are linebackers, right? What are you missing that you need to go find? And sometimes you go find that.